Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm taking this one slow because I have just had a day of hearing so much garbage, to be quite honest. And garbage is not quite even the right word for it, but I will stick with garbage for the time being. From physicians who have been experiencing all kinds of hardships. Terminations without cause, without explanation. Receiving a letter that you are terminated immediately because your credentialing is out of date. An endless load of things in your inbox, including ongoing conversations with patients asking the same question over and over and over again, sending you pages and pages and paragraphs of argument about why they should have what they want. Prior authorization denials and all that goes with them. Okay, let's take a break and take a breath together. The common theme that is running around my brain, having heard and seen many of these stories just today and just in this last little week, which has already been a tough week. Los Angeles has been burning, ongoing conflicts all over the world. Medicare may decide to no longer fund telehealth. There's all kinds of challenges going on in the world and in our particular lives. And the common theme here that I think is especially challenging is that for so many of these particular issues, we have very little control over the situation. And yet, we are often perceived to be the source of the problem or the source of the delay or the difficulty. And so physicians really face this weird juxtaposition where, in many ways, they do not have control over outcomes and situations. And yet, as the I'm going to say nominal top of the food chain in terms of healthcare, in terms of how things are perceived anyway, there's this huge mismatch. And I think for so many of us, that creates a lot of internal chaos. And so today I want to talk about it. We're calling this episode So Little Control, but my original title was You Are Not the Problem They Think You Are. And so I'll just throw that out there as a little nugget to chuckle over. Let's start simply and we'll move forward. So thinking about all the challenges that we face with the inbox, the electronic medical record inbox. A number of physicians in my coaching group have identified just the level of distress that they face in logging in and checking their inbox. And this is such a common theme. I don't know of any physician, quite frankly, who doesn't struggle with their inbox, who is responsible for an inbox, because of course not every human is. But this this idea that sits so deeply in our brain that every question, problem, issue that is presented in the inbox that arrives to our portion of the inbox is automatically our problem. This is a very real issue for so many of us, right? Because we have no control over the volume of things that might come in on any day or any week. We sometimes are responsible for covering for colleagues who are out on vacation or sick or who have left or any other number of circumstances. And we also have very little control over the manner of what comes in. And all of this creates a lot of distress and chaos because many of us have programmed ourselves through long-standing learning and culturation in the system of medicine that everything that is tasked or assigned to us is our responsibility and therefore becomes our fault when something has gone wrong. So think of the inappropriate, urgent message that is sent to the portal at 5:45 on a Friday afternoon and is not going to be read until Monday, but contained some kind of important piece of information that didn't get acted on. If you are in primary care, there is a really, really good chance, right, that this has happened to you where a result didn't come in or a message came late. And again, it was inappropriately urgent. It shouldn't have been in the inbox to begin with. The patient who says, I'm feeling suicidal, I'm having chest pain, some other inappropriate thing in the inbox. And at some point, we encounter it later. Even if you encountered it at 4:45 before you left for the afternoon, what are you going to do in that instance, right? I want to acknowledge that there is this very real tension here between having such a high level of responsibility in people's lives, being their healthcare advisors, being people who sometimes operate on, being people who advise on medications and health conditions and diagnose, right? We do have an incredibly high degree of responsibility in the work that we do. And yet, that does not mean that we are fully responsible for the decisions that the patient made or the biology of the patient that led to some condition occurring. The inappropriate use of this tool, the electronic medical record, by patients who are so used to being digitally connected to everything that they want, right? You can order a pizza. You can order things to be delivered to your house within an hour. You can do all your banking. There are so many things that you can do with these devices in your pocket that it's no wonder people think, my doctor is just waiting on the other side of this portal to answer my question. And let's also not forget that many of our patients are anxious, worried, and scared, right? They don't want to acknowledge that that chest pain could be something serious. And so, them sending a casual, by the way, I've been having chest pain every time I do push ups, email to you at 5:45 on a Friday afternoon. There's a part of this there that is their denial of the possibility that something serious could be going on. Because I'm sorry, every single human that I am aware of who has adult capacity of some kind knows that chest pain might be a serious reason. And I'll also say that lots of people who have chest pain and are experiencing actual cardiac angina do not want to believe that that is what is happening to them. So, perfect storm right there. Take a breath here. My intention is not to rile you up, but I want to point out that, again, this is a situation that we have very little control over. And it's easy for us to interpret the volume and the severity of things in our inbox as being our fault, our responsibility, our weight, our burden to bear. And that is not fair when we think about the context, again, of the broken healthcare system and all of the decisions that have happened upstream to, or downstream, whatever side of the stream we're on here, to get to this place where this volume can happen to us without control or support, where despite all the warnings in the world about this is not an urgent messaging service, again, patients will still choose to send inappropriate messages wrapped up in their own emotions and denial and fears. All of these things are important to consider when you are staring at your inbox in despair, feeling like you are the one who is fully responsible for this. And the first thing that we need to do, quite frankly, is to settle down our nervous system. Because even me, just sort of thinking about these circumstances, my brain is being flooded with all of the very discrete memories that I have of these particular circumstances related to the inbox. And I'll tell you, I'm in a different place now than I was for many, many years. But my experience of the inbox trained me to think that I was 100% responsible for being on it, in it, all the time, because that was the only way I was going to be saving my patients. And like any primary care physician, I can tell you a million stories off the top of my head of things that have happened, again, related to one inappropriate portal message sent. So we know that there is a very real reality there, and yet we also cannot carry the responsibility. But I feel it in my nervous system right now, and I'm sure that you do too. And I want to acknowledge that the very first step is that we need to settle down that nervous system response. This is where, forgive me for saying, this is where your deep breathing comes in. This is where your grounding exercises, right? Of feeling your toes inside your shoes, pushing down. All of these kinds of exercises are designed to try and help settle down that sympathetic nervous system tone that is making you suddenly feel nauseous, jittery, anxious, overwhelmed. Settle that down first. Because without doing that, without bringing yourself out of fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, it is very difficult to do anything to move yourself forward. We don't need to judge ourselves for being here. We all have the stories of why we go into a sympathetic nervous system fight or flight reaction when we see certain messages or names or things coming up in the inbox. No judgment here. It comes from our lived experience of all of the things that we have encountered before. And we have to settle that in order to move forward in our journeys. Once we have settled that a bit, and again, thinking about that in the moment when you're feeling panic after reading a message, but also just thinking about that in the big picture, that we all need to decrease our sympathetic nervous system tone in general and increase our parasympathetic rest and digest relaxation responses so that they're better balanced over the course of our lives. Acknowledging that, we also need to identify, what is it that I'm thinking over and over and over again when it comes to something like this that I have very little control over. Let's take the inappropriate urgent out of here for just a moment. I'm not staring anymore at a message that's talking about chest pain that I saw came from 2 days ago. Now I might be just looking at my inbox and there's 20 messages or there's very long paragraphs from my patients. And what am I thinking in response to that? So if you've listened to episodes before, you know that when we have an emotion, there are thoughts that are connected to it. The emotion is a response to our thoughts, really, but usually the emotion is the thing that we notice, right? If I'm feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, resentful, angry, panicked, looking at the inbox, it's because I've got some thoughts when I see that there are 20 messages sitting there for me or paragraphs. What am I actually thinking about the inbox when that is happening? Now, if I am feeling overwhelmed, resentful, frustrated, angry in seeing the volume or the volume of a message or the volume of messages or all of it, right? I am having thoughts that probably go something along the lines of anticipating that I'm going to be spending hours here, that people are using my time inappropriately, that I am responsible and on the hook for replying to all of these messages myself, that all of the things, right? That my patient must not have understood in our very long conversation yesterday when I said that no, he was not an appropriate candidate for a treatment that he wants. And then he turns around and sends me 5 more pages of reasons why he thinks he should have access to whatever treatment. And I've said no, and my position remains no. If I am feeling and believing that my responsibility is to spend hours responding to all these messages, to do all of the work myself, to take on and bear the responsibility of all of this, frankly, unpaid work. No wonder I have those feelings. So pull out the thoughts, identify what you're thinking, and that gives us an opportunity to not only understand and empathize with ourselves, quite frankly, for having the emotions that we're having, but also to check the validity of those thoughts. Just because a nurse has forwarded a message to me without maybe doing appropriate triage on the message does not mean that therefore I have no choice or agency. I might believe that, but I have the opportunity to decide, nope, that is an appropriate task to send back to said nurse or the nursing team, whatever the situation is in your office, clinic, hospital, and say, this concern needs to be triaged. I need you to call so and so and ask them more or put them on the schedule. We so commonly believe that anything that is sent to us, again, from patients, staff, whatever, is our responsibility. And again, so many of us are used to spending hours and hours and hours on this work. We need to understand what we are believing in response to looking at that inbox and to decide whether or not it's sustainable, appropriate, feasible, because most of the time it is not, but it is just our learned response. It is our conditioned behavior to think, if somebody sent this to me, I must act on it. Taking a breath there. So we look at the thoughts, again, with kindness and empathy for the emotional responses that we're having. And then we get to decide, what am I going to do to proceed? The patient who I've already spent a very long time with discussing why the thing that they're requesting is not appropriate or not available, and then sends me pages and pages of reasons why they think it is appropriate and I ought to reconsider. I could go into a paragraph by paragraph dialogue with them in the inbox on my own time and expect to get pages and pages and paragraphs back. But if you understand that you have the authority to decide that for yourself, this is not medically appropriate, and I will not choose to move forward with this pathway, you have the opportunity to keep your response very short and to invite the patient to move on if this is not a good therapeutic relationship. We don't do this a lot in primary care. And I think that a lot of the time we feel very beholden to do what our patients demand or ask of us. And sometimes, frankly, it is not appropriate. Or it might be something that someone considers reasonable. Someone other than myself or someone who has different ideas or it might be, but I don't have to offer it. I'll give you a very brief example in that I was asked last year to sign a medical marijuana card. I think I've shared this story before. I said no. Patient was really upset with me. She wanted to get the marijuana at a lower cost. Now, I don't control whether or not she uses marijuana. I don't control whether or not she ends up with a medical marijuana card. I just know that for myself, I choose not to offer that. I choose not to sign off on that because I just frankly don't feel comfortable putting my name to that because I don't feel comfortable thinking that that's an appropriate treatment. So I don't want my name on it. I am allowed to decide for myself that that is not something that I offer. But again, in the sort of customer service bastardized world of primary care, I might feel like I have no choice in the matter. There are many treatments that people want all the time that are not medically appropriate, right? As an obesity medicine specialist, I am someone who prescribes GLP-1 medications all the time. But I do so within my training and comfort level. And if I offered Ozempic I'm using Ozempic because that's what people come in to ask for, even though that's obviously not the obesity version. When people come in and they're just like, well, I just want that. That's nice. You can just want it. That doesn't mean it's appropriate. That doesn't mean it's safe. That doesn't mean I'm going to sign off on it. There are many, many examples of this. But again, without examining our thoughts a little bit, we will not give ourselves the agency to decide whether or not we give ourselves permission to say yes or no. When you think about the areas of your work where you feel that you do not have control, and again, just thinking about the things that the patients want that might not be appropriate, their expectations about their ability to access you all day, any time of day. And that includes wanting an immediate message back, wanting to get a refill right away when that's not the policy, wanting their form to be filled out while they wait, but only for 10 minutes, right? As though you can drop everything and get that done. All the administrative garbage when a text system is not working and you can't actually press the button and get the thing that you need. When there's a prior authorization that keeps getting denied, even though this is a fully appropriate treatment for your patient. It's just seeing a doctor who is a surgeon talking about being called by United Healthcare when she was operating on the patient and them insisting on fighting over whether or not that patient qualified for inpatient admission after the surgery. They called the surgeon and interrupted the surgery to fight the insurance authorization over admission for her post-surgical recovery. She scrubbed out to take this call not knowing, right, what it was about. The moral injury, the just mind blown, sort of challenges that we face. I want to acknowledge that there is so much in our worlds that we do not have control over, but yet that we are perceived to be the deciders of, the ones who are in control. Think about if you're an employed physician and a patient doesn't get along with the medical assistant who ruined them or didn't like the front desk interaction and believes that you are responsible for that person because you must be the employer, not knowing at all this grand structure of hierarchy that has nothing to do with you, because you are also in fact an employee of this system and have zero control over personnel. There is so much that we do not control. That's not even including the things that happen to human bodies. My point is that we can no longer carry the internal responsibility, the believed responsibility for so many of these things. We will not be able to have everyone understand that we don't control those things, that we don't have a lot of power over the insurance companies and what gets authorized and what doesn't, that we aren't standing by 24/7 to answer their questions, that they can't understand the incredible volume of work that we do every day. There are so many things, and we will run ourselves into the ground if we try and have everyone else understand what it's like to be us. Let's not waste our energy there. What I want you to decide for yourself is that you will acknowledge how little control we actually have, not in defeat, but simply acknowledging that you have been carrying the responsibility of things that are not yours to own, and to start to do this work. First, in calming your nervous system down so that you can breathe. Second, in exploring what is the emotion that I have and what are the thoughts that are coming up around it, and really focusing your energy on understanding what your brain is continually telling you that is feeding into the difficulty and challenge here. There's your metacognition task for 2025, is just to better understand our often subconscious thoughts about what our job is, what our responsibility is. There's so much there that we do not have control over. And if we carry all of those burdens with us, we are so depleted and overwhelmed, we cannot do good work. We are going to struggle with every decision that we make, and we can't do that. Third, deciding for yourself, how are you going to proceed? We can't do the best job of making these decisions until we've done these other parts. And I'm not going to suggest that you are going to get all of this done in one day. This is a process of unfolding and unlearning so many habits, and it does roll out really, really slowly, much, much slower than you learn all the new things that you learn every year about taking care of human bodies. I know you're learning tons of things and unlearning these deep-seated habits and beliefs so that you take care of yourself, that you decide for yourself how you practice medicine, even if you're an employed physician and you don't have a ton of control over the number of patients or the timing of the visits. There's so many things we don't control. You do get to control who you are, how you show up, how you take care of yourself. We've talked about this before, right? The broken healthcare system and how that needs to change, but we cannot afford to wait for the healthcare machine to be better before we start to take care of ourselves. We can't do it. I don't want to continue to see us give up in defeat. In preparing for recording this today, I was trying to hop on and trying to see how many women physicians have been terminated without cause, because this was discussed today. And of course, I can't find any numbers because That stuff happens in secret, and I want to tell you, it happens all the time and far more often than you can imagine. And it's maddening and deafening and soul crushing. That's a topic for a different day, but I want to acknowledge that it is one of the worst components of the broken healthcare system. And again, I'm going to try not to go down that rabbit hole here, but I want to acknowledge how hurtful that kind of thing is. But in trying to search and find out how frequently that happens, I came across an article that was just updated in 2024 about how many women physicians are still leaving medicine. Articles came out prior to the pandemic showing how women, commonly cut down to part-time or leave medicine altogether because of all the strain on them that's on top of the normal stuff in the broken healthcare system on women physicians in particular. It has not lessened, and it has in fact gotten worse during the pandemic, which is a shock to zero humans. But I just want to acknowledge that if we want to stay, if we want to continue in medicine, if there's still a part of us that finds joy there or wants to find joy again, choosing to take good care of ourselves, choosing to control what we can, and that's really only ourselves, is the path to be able to do that. I can't think of any other way, because I have not seen any other way. Now, I am not all-knowing, all-telling, but I will say that for myself and for so many of the successful women physicians who have turned things around after suffering, they have done this work in figuring out, how do I take care of myself? How do I figure out what my priorities and values are? And then practicing them. And it is practice, because we have to unlearn old practices and start to replace them with new ones. We suck at it for a long time until we get better and better, just like we sucked at everything else that we had to learn. All right, you're a high achieving group. You were amazing at some things right from the beginning. I know you. That's what you're saying right now. It's okay to suck at setting boundaries. It's okay to flounder as you are trying to unlearn these habits, but it is doable. It is necessary. It is so important. Take excellent care of yourself. You are too precious not to do this. It makes complete sense if you had not been doing this, but do it now. Start today. Unlearn and ditch the unhelpful thoughts that have you working 300% of your capacity all the time in a broken healthcare system. Identify what those thoughts are and practice thinking new thoughts in their place. You are not responsible for every human whose name you are attached to in the chart. You're responsible for your parts of it. You're responsible to do the best work you can with the resources that you have, with the things that you know, with good intent. We will not prevent all mistakes. We will not avoid all errors. We will do our best to do the best job that we can. Take a breath. Take care of yourself. I can't say it enough. You deserve all the best. You deserve to live a life. You deserve to walk through this world not believing that all you are is a physician, not believing that you don't get to live until all the tasks are done. My friends, wrapping up this day, again, where I've encountered so much distress, so much struggle, so many stories that just make me really want a rage room right now. Go break a bunch of stuff. Because that doesn't solve the problem. I want to leave us with hope. I want to leave you with hope. This is work that I've done for myself. This is work that I've done with my clients. This is work that I've had help to do in my own life, right? None of us does this alone. This is the work that the women physicians in my group Unbound are doing right now. And for those of you who are in Unbound and you are listening, you are an amazing group of women physician humans. And it is my honor to be alongside you as you are doing this work in community, because it is brave work. So don't walk out of this discussion in despair. Walk out of it with your eyes open, with your heart open, with an intention to take excellent care of yourself, to acknowledge the things that you do not control, and to forge a different path. My friends, until next week, thank you so much, as always, for listening. Please share this episode with a friend that you know is experiencing stress, distress, overwhelm. Please leave a rating and a review. I didn't lead off with this, but if you're still listening, my birthday is January 12th, and the best birthday present you could get me is leaving me a rating, review, or sharing this episode or any other episode that you love with a friend. My intent is to help women physicians in particular stay connected, grounded, and heal from the harms and the hurts that we have endured, and to help us all to grow and advance and come through to live lives that we love. Okay, I'm really going now. Have an excellent week, and until next time, take care.
Well, that's our show for today. Thank you as always for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.